A very warm welcome to Talking Couch, a flagship podcast channel of the Psycholingo. I'm your host, psychologist Anam Ahmed, live from Hamburg, Germany, excited, happy, and filled with gratitude. In our fifth episode, we'll touch upon the discipline of psychology, some facts, some situational developments in the 19th and 20th century, building upon the episodes 2 and 3 that you can go and listen to it on the channel, where we discussed on what ground did this idea take birth, mental disorders and diseases, how did the idea emerge, how did we end up studying it and defining it. I will talk about the evolution of the concept of mind in this episode because there is something very influential sitting inside of us like a big boss, controlling our lives without us being able to see and study it physically. You know, it leaves us amazed of what, capabilities it has and what influence it has on us. Let's delve deeper into the hows and whys of our minds, trying to find out exactly why psychology was born as a discipline and how the concept of mind emerged. So now, what are we waiting for? Let's begin and stay tuned. Since the time of the first human civilization on our planet till date, we have been very, very curious about the concepts of mind and soul. There were certain questions and curiosities like how do we process information from our environment? Where does knowledge come from? How do we test whether it is true or not? What is exactly the actual truth? How do we make decisions in life? How do we come to assumptions and conclusions? How do we learn and gain experience and formulate memories? What is this inner voice in our head all the time? What is mind made up of? What is body and soul? How do we interact with one another? Is the mind eternal? Does it continue to live even after we die? What is human existence all about? What is life? What is a good life? What is happiness? What is purpose? How and why do we feel a different spectrum of emotions around it? All of these were the curiosities of many philosophers and enlightened thinkers since the day one. And I think early Greek writings and contributions of philosophers are like amazing, scriptures and amazing records that we have in the written form where we are exposed to the early thinkers. Like how did they start building concepts around it? Because it was getting important to know how the mind functions because we were all living together as a society and there were problems, there were diseases, there were situations. And we were not able to find answers to, establishing total law and order or dealing with certain situations or treating diseases, as we had already, had this discussion in episodes 2 and 3 that people were becoming challenging at some point in time and we lacked solution to their problems. So someone had to go out bold and strong to study the whole structure of mind. Where are these thoughts, emotions, and perceptions, and sensations, and thinking, and decision making, and everything coming out? Several attempts here are being made since the historical times because it is so hard to make a concrete understanding of something which we cannot observe directly. Can we? Can we observe our mind and mental processes physically? Can we observe it? It doesn't have a physical existence. The question was, how will we study it? Who will study it? How will we prove that our studies are really scientific, that it really happened and it happens and it will happen? How will we report our studies and how can that enhance our knowledge of human behavior, existence, our bodies, certain diseases, etc., or maybe define a criminal behavior in the society, some law and order situations being so alarming and they are being a challenge and potential threat, and all the different social issues pertaining to women rights, equal dignity, and all the things pertaining to social situations and issues which were there. So many solutions were dependent on this idea of unraveling our mind and mental processes, because if everything is the physical body and masses of cells and neurons, then to bring desirable changes in humans in how we think, act, and feel should have been very easy peasy. You have a magic injection, a surgery, or a pill working on your body to provide a different code for the person to start leading a different life after waking up from this surgery, or after, having this injection in place, or just taking that magic pill altogether. There is a big boss, I tell you, behind everything, and that immaterial body called mind we are trying to study and explore here. How we go back in time, and when we do that, psychology shares a good amount of history with philosophy as a discipline, because early philosophers were the first ones who started speculating on these themes of mind, behavior, thoughts, and mental processes, and wrote groundbreaking assumptions, theories, and testaments, which later became the foundation for psychology. Henceforth, psychology was born out of philosophy after adopting different methodology to investigate mind and behavior to color its findings more scientifically. So any assumption, theory we as psychologists were giving out, we were also handing in the information on how we tested it, researched on it, and what methods did we use, how we generalized these findings on other populations. Statistical methods, we took help from mathematics, were being used along with the knowledge of other pure sciences to prove the theory. Recalling just few philosophers here, I think makes good sense, and we have this period somewhere in 1300 to 1400 AD, where we have this period of European Renaissance, and modern period begins at this point, marking the transition from the Middle Ages to modernity, covering the 15th and 16th century. It was associated with great social change in most fields and disciplines, including art, architecture, politics, literature, and people were trying to explore life through different angles. So we have one such great philosopher whose contribution is just mind-blowing, and his name is René Descartes. 1596 to 1650, we were blessed with his presence on this planet, and he's also called the father of modern philosophy. He was a French philosopher, mathematician, a famous scientist of his time. And once we start discussing a little bit about his contribution, why does he have this special place in our discussion? So there is a famous line by him, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Cogito ergo sum, which means I think, therefore I am. So underlying already that how important underlying mental processes are, how great influence it has on our brain and body. He brought the concept of Cartesian dualism, which is actually mind and body being two separate entities. We have to study them separately. There is a way in which they are interacting with one another, but they are two different concepts. Body including the brain as well. So mind being a separate entity, and you need different tools and methodology to unravel it. Where mind is actually immaterial, it doesn't have physical existence. Where it is a seat for emotions and thoughts and beliefs, it has that power and influence in our life. Where it is interacting with our brain and body through a finger-like structure called pineal gland in our brain structure. If you know a little bit of biology and you go to Google and search about it, there does exist a pineal gland, to which Descartes says that it acts as an interaction between your mind and your brain, and then brain connecting to the body. It helps to establish that communication. He also says that having a doubt in life is very important. Please be curious around life. And it is so important for human evolution because curiosity is the mother of invention. There is curiosity, then there will arise a need. And then you will be so, you will be dipped in that water of hows and whys. Then you will start researching, you will start assumptions, you will start hearing and asking people for their opinions, and you will start, gathering some facts around it. So he was the one who said that please start doubting things in life. Keep doubting life, existence around you, establishing whys and hows, exploring the truth, and establishing it with backed truth and facts. So he was the first one who started this line of thought that please separate mind from the body. It does exist. You need a method to explore it because I am a thinking being, and that is why I am alive. I'm alive because I think. I'm alive because I have this inner voice in my head which helps me decide about my life. Building upon these early philosophical theories, we have psychology taking birth. We have a psychology word as being, published in the market as a new discipline, where psyche is actually a Greek word called mind, and oncology, which means to study it, something that it is a study discipline. So study of mind became psychology, and we have the first contributor who was the first one to call himself as a psychologist was Wilhelm Wundt. And Wilhelm Wundt was the first one to call himself a psychologist. He's the father of modern psychology, coming in 1879, not to confuse him with Sigmund Freud, who started the first, method of talking cure, where he revolutionized the concept of mental diseases. And there is a therapy that we have to take in place, and then there is talking cure. And he had this groundbreaking, discoveries in terms of understanding mental disorders. But here we are talking about psychology, that psychology as a discipline taking birth away from philosophy, establishing itself as a science, using scientific methods to study mental life. Wilhelm Wundt being the first one to call himself a pioneer of psychology. He comes in the picture, who's a German professor in his time in 1879, and he founded the first experimental lab in the University of Leipzig. Here it is a small city in Germany where there is a first lab being constructed, where we will use the scientific methodology. We will use physics, we'll use chemistry, we'll use a little bit of statistical mathematics, and we will try to conduct some experiments. We will call in some people, and we will try to study their mental processes. That was his intention. Throwing a little bit of light on his background, how did he arrive at this idea? So Wundt studied medicine as well as natural sciences and philosophy from 1851 to 1856 at the universities of Heidelberg and Tübingen. These are also cities in Germany. In Heidelberg, he attended physics lectures and was awarded Doctorate of Medicine in 1856. So you see that there is always a background in science. Like in Sigmund Freud as well, we have seen that he was a neurologist. He was practicing in the hospital, treating people of disorders and diseases. And likewise here as well, Wilhelm Wundt is of a scientific background. He holds knowledge of medicine and physics and scientific disciplines. So these were the people who brought the scientific methodology in psychology, and that's how it had to have that separation from philosophy, who are still, into the philosophy of life and nature and human purpose and all of those things. But we were trying to establish something more scientific on the ground. So, in the small city of Leipzig in Germany since 1875, there is an experimental lab in place under the leadership of Wilhelm Wundt. He started giving lectures on logic, methodology, psychology of language, general results of brain activities, and nerve physiology with regard to psychology, history of modern cosmology, internships in experimental psychology. So, it was all provided for free because he was gathering gathering enlightened mind of those times. And he believed in this idea that, when we will have this small group of young thinkers and I will expose them to my ideas, we will collaborate and build something amazing together. And that's what happened. With this begins the journey to your inner self, where now people could not deny completely that mind does exist and it is worthy of speculation. Many came forward with their ideas and thoughts. They started, brainstorming over this. They also brought in mathematical solutions, and a scientific theory was being developed around mental processes. So it also helps us define how we look at the human mind, to describe its functioning and also define relevant interventions to solve a problematic state. Coming from him came certain school of thought. So now psychology was standing at this juncture where you have a concept of mind. You are trying to study what mind is composed of. So you need a method, you need a school of thought where you will restrict yourself to having some vision and mission and values. So we have certain schools of thought coming out of this step, the first step towards studying our mind. So different school of thoughts, and I think the first one was called structuralism, which was started by Wundt himself. And it was the first school wherein he used the method of introspection. So introspection is a method where he encouraged people to come into this experiment where he would tell them to sit in silence, meditate, introspect a little bit. Introspection is a method to look into your consciousness and your mental activities, to be mindful and be aware of what you are feeling, what emotions are filling your body, where do you feel it in your physical senses, and your thoughts all coming out in your consciousness. And you are to note all of these experiences. So he was putting something from the environment in terms of a sensory excitation. For example, there is a sound, an image, or a light, or a frequency. So he's trying to get in something from the environment to have an impact on you, and you are trying to give us your subjective experience through introspection. So this was the first school of thought where we were trying to understand your mind, like what are the components, how thinking and thought and emotions and belief systems are being formed when we have certain influence from the environment. The second school of thought is functionalism, where you have people like William James coming into the picture, and he was so inspired by the Darwinian theory of evolution. So he said that structure is fine, like you are trying to define the structure of the mind, that there is these elements as part of the mind. But as a functionalist approach to this concept of studying mind, we want to understand that what are the function of this mind. So how are we adapting to our environment? How are we using these mental processes to make our lives more meaningful around? The aim is to find meaning and purpose. That's why the word function. So what is exactly the function of brain? They gradually, grew interested in questions of how we learn things in our environment and adapt to our environment, influence our environment, get influence from it as well, find purpose and meaning in life, solving a function, providing a function. Third school of thought is behaviorism, and they are all coming in chronological order. First came structuralism, then came functionalism, and now there is a behaviorist movement. Now they are trying to balance these two forces in United States of America, and under the leadership of John B. Watson. He was a researcher and psychologist during that time. And he started this school of thought where he would talk about how are we learning things from the environment. So there is reinforcement from our environment. There is a feedback that we receive, and we develop certain theories around it. There are certain punishments that we get out of the experiences. There is something good reinforcers that we get from our environment, and we try to learn from these experiences, and we try to shape our behavior according to it in our future. These were his thoughts, that you have to study actually the behavior and not so much in the mental processes, that what is actual behavior that we are projecting outside in the environment. And these behavior are actually based on certain kind of learning that we do out of the experiences of good and bad. This was the behaviorism all about. Being more scientific, you have to, invest a lot of time in studying what we can observe physically like a behavior. So they were, growing more towards a more scientific area. And I will be taking up these school of thought in more detail, because I think there is a lot to offer about our mind and behavior and emotion, and talk about their contribution actually. That's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me and holding your attention till the end. Remember to take care of yourself and each other. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, share this powerful message with your dear ones around, follow us on our social media for new updates. Check out our website for booking up a therapy session with me, or visit great courses made on psychology. Until next time, this is your psychologist Anam Ahmed signing off for now. Ciao, auf Wiedersehen.